going to make a traditional Italian lasagna. We're going to make fresh pasta from scratch. We're going to do a Bolognese sauce, and then we're going to put it all together and bake it in the oven. So right now I'm getting my mise en place ready. I've got some onions cut up. I'm going to cut up some garlic, and then we're going to head over to the stove to get that part ready, and then we'll come back over here to put our lasagna together. While I'm getting my garlic peeled, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the different ingredients that we have today for our meal. And lasagna is one of my favorite things to make. We serve this a lot in our restaurants. We did a red lasagna, a white lasagna. We did veggie lasagnas. There's lots of different ways that you can do this. So today I'm doing the traditional, which is going to have the bolognese. So I have some beautiful ground round, and I also have a little bit of ground Italian sausage mixed in there. We have some stewed tomatoes. You could use fresh tomatoes if it's that time of year where you can get a lot of fresh tomatoes. But if not, stewed tomatoes work fine. Just make sure that there's not a lot of added ingredients. I have some mozzarella, of course, that we're going to top it off with. I have some eggs that we're going to build our pasta with. And then, of course, I have beautiful ricotta cheese. And we're going to use a layer of this in the center. So I'm going to get the garlic chopped up, and then we're going to actually head over to the range to get the ingredients ready, and then we'll come back over here and build our lasagna layer by layer with that fresh pasta. Before we head over to the range to get everything cooked off, we are going to go ahead and make our pasta. So in the bowl, I have 2 cups of a pasta flour and semolina mixed together, equal parts, and we're going to make our pasta in a bowl. Traditionally, this is done on a countertop, but we're going to make it in a bowl because it just makes a little bit less mess. So fresh pasta is always best, and it's fast to cook. So if you make this at home, it's really easy to get this lasagna done and in the oven really fast. So what we're going to do is make a little well in the center to put our eggs into. And we're going to put them right where we made that little well. Now, if your pasta gets too wet, we can always add more flour. If it's too dry, we can always add more eggs. But this recipe is kind of really simple to make. So to this, we're going to also add a little bit of olive oil. Make sure you don't add too much olive oil. That's actually the one thing that can mess this whole recipe up. All right, now with the tines of a fork, we're going to go ahead and bust the egg yolks, and we're going to start to mix right in the center where our well is. We're going to slowly add the flour to that until this comes together into a ball. We're going to get our hands in here eventually and start mixing it, but we're going to go ahead and get this flour mixed in first. You don't want to just scrape around the edge and mix all of the flour in because you may not use all this flour. It's okay if some is left over. We want to just use what we need to take that wetness away from the dough so that we can touch it with our hands and it won't stick to us. If we use all of it, it's fine, but if we don't, that's fine too. So just add little bits at a time till you can see the ball starting to come together. Once you get to this point, I'm going to go ahead and get my hands in here. So we're going to get that off of the fork. I'm going to flour my hands, and I'm going to start pulling the dough from the edges into the center to make a ball, from the edges to the center. Now I'm staying away from that extra flour on the edge over there. We're just going to use whatever flour we need, not more than what we need. We don't want our dough to be dry. We want it to be just perfect to roll through our pasta machine. And that's looking really good. So this extra flour We're going to take our ball of dough out, and you can see how that's come together. When I touch it, it doesn't stick to my hand. So what we want to do is take some of the extra flour that we have. We're going to lightly dust it onto our board. Just a light dusting. We don't want to use more than we need. And then we're going to knead the dough. I'm going to get this excess off of my fingers. And we're going to pat the dough down flat. We're going to pull it from the edge that's farthest away from us. Put that towards the center and push with the heel of our hand. And then we turn it, fold, and push. Turn, fold, and push. If it starts to get sticky, then we need to get a little bit more flour. We don't want our dough sticking to us. Fold, push, turn, fold, push. And you want to keep doing that for a few minutes. That's called kneading the dough. And as we're kneading, we're developing the gluten, and we want to get that gluten developed in the dough so the dough will be nice and tender. So I'd say we're going to knead it for about 3 or 4 minutes. Once we've kneaded the dough for about 3 or 4 minutes, it gets really smooth on the top. And now what we need to do is let our dough rest for a few minutes while we go to the range and make the Bolognese sauce for the inside of our lasagna. Okay, it's time to get ready to build our Bolognese, and this is going to be a really simple sauce. Most Italian food is really simple. It uses the freshest ingredients, and that's where you get the most flavor. So we're gonna start our pan with extra virgin olive oil, of course. Couple of turns around. Then we're going to add our garlic. I have the pan on high, and we're going to get this cooking. We want our garlic to start sizzling before we add our onions to the pan. And we're going to cook these off for just a second before we add our meat and sausage. So I like to use a combination of ground beef and sausage. And traditionally, a Bolognese also would have some type of carrots or something in it for sweetness, but I usually don't put that in my Bolognese, so you can try it if you'd like. It would go in right now when we're doing the garlic and the onions. So I'm going to get this cooking, and then I'll add my onions. Once our garlic has started to sizzle, it's time to go ahead and add our onions. Remember that our meat is a blend of Italian sausage and a ground beef. And the ground beef is going to be the bulk of our Bolognese, but the ground sausage is going to give it that fat and that flavor. And you should have them mixed together so well that you can't tell the difference, because you don't want pockets of just sausage or just the beef. So have them mixed together by your butcher if you can. If you can't, then just make sure you mix them together by hand really well before you put them into the pan. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start to brown off this ground meat, but before we do that, we've got to season it. You have to season meat while it's cooking. It's very difficult to get flavor into the meat once it's already cooked. So I'm salting it first, and then we're going to use fresh ground black pepper. And then, of course, we're going to use some of the secret seasoning, and we're going to be pretty liberal with that. You can order the secret seasoning on our website at chefdannycooks.com. There's no salt, pepper, or sugar in there, so we can add as much as we like. I'm going to stir this around and get this meat browning. We're looking for all the brownness to go away on the meat. We don't want any left. And while I'm doing this, it's a good time to remind you to make sure and click that subscribe button and the notification bell so you find out when I upload new videos. I upload videos at least once a week, sometimes more. I really would love to have you as part of the family. So please join us. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So please make sure you click that notification bell and the subscribe button if you want to be notified. I would love to have you as one of my VIPs for the first 1,000. We are going to have a very special gift for the 1,000th subscriber. So please make sure and click that button. Most of our ground meat has browned off. I don't really see that much pink left in it anymore. We want to make sure we get all of that pink gone from the center, although we are going to cook it for just a little bit longer, but you want to try to make sure it's cooked in this first stage. So what I'm going to add next is our stewed tomatoes. And then I'm also going to add about the same amount of tomato sauce. We're going to stir that around and get it mixed into our meat. And then we need to season again, because so far what we've seasoned is the meat. We have not seasoned the sauce because we're just now starting to build the sauce. So we're going to season again. I don't think we really need to add any more salt. You can add that, it's up to you, but I just usually add a little bit more of the secret seasoning and some fresh herbs to give it a nice flavor. We don't want our sauce to be really too salty, but we want to make sure that it has lots of flavor. We're going to stir that in and get that mixed up really, really nice. And we're going to add a little bit of fresh basil and fresh oregano. So the oregano on the stems, I like to just throw that in. Eventually the leaves are going to fall off into our sauce, and then we will pull the stems out. But the stems also help to add flavor to our sauce, so there's no need to pick the leaves off right now. Then we're going to add our basil. I got this fresh from the garden, and what I'm going to do is just pull pieces off of the basil. Now, you don't really want to cut basil. We like to make sure we tear it and we're gentle with it. We want all of the flavor to go into our sauce. We don't want to leave it on the cutting board. So fresh basil is always best. If you can't get fresh basil, you could use dried, but I always prefer fresh. Stir that around, and we're going to let our sauce cook for just a couple of minutes, and then we're going to cool it down and we'll be ready to build our lasagna. While we're waiting for our sauce to cool down so we can build our lasagna, I'm going to go ahead and roll out the dough and show you how to make your lasagna sheets. So I'm going to get a little bit of flour on my board, and this is the same flour that we use to make the pasta. I'm going to put a little off to the side just in case I need some. Like I said before, we don't want to over flour. I'm going to take my bench scraper and I'm going to cut it into 4 pieces. And I'm going to roll one out at a time. We'll make sure to flour our rolling pin, and we're going to pat the dough out. Now we need to roll it thin enough to go through our pasta machine, and I have the attachment that's going to go onto the KitchenAid, and I'm going to show you how that works in just a minute. But for right now, I want to get this rolled just thin enough to go in the first section. Now your dough cannot be sticky because it's going to stick to your pasta machine, so we want to make sure that it's not too sticky on the edges. We have all 4 of our sections rolled thin enough to go into our pasta machine. So we're going to head over there and we're going to get this rolled out for our lasagna. It's time to roll the pasta out while we're waiting on our bolognese to cool. And I have attached my pasta attachment to my KitchenAid mixer. I like this attachment when I'm making lasagna. I prefer a hand crank machine when I'm making fettuccine or other types of pasta. But what I would like to show you is how you have to set this. So what I need to show you is the distance in between these 2 rollers. I have it on 2 right now. If I turn it to 6, the rollers get closer together. If I turn it to 2, the rollers get farther apart. You can see through them, and then they get closer together. So you pull the knob out to turn it. We want to start on the widest setting. So this one is the widest setting, and then this one would be the closest setting. We're going to start on the widest, and then we're going to move to the closest. So I'm starting on the widest setting, which for us is going to be 2. I'm going to go ahead and turn my machine on. Make sure that you have floured your dough really well so it doesn't stick to your machine. And we're going to roll it through on 2. Then we're going to turn the machine off. And we're going to go to 4. Turn the machine back on. And roll it through on 4. Every time we go through, we're making the dough thinner and thinner. Turn it back off. And then we're going to do it on 6. Pull the knob out, turn it to 6, turn the machine back on, and we're going to roll it through on 6. And this is our lasagna. Fresh lasagna pasta. I'm going to do that with all of our pieces, and then we're going to go back over to the cutting board to put our lasagna together. Now it's time to build the lasagna. So what we're going to do first is we're going to put a little layer of our bolognese. Just a light layer on the bottom. That's where we're going to start to build. And you can see it's still a little bit hot, but we did let it cool down a little bit. We don't want it scalding hot when we build this. Now, the next thing that goes on our lasagna is our fresh pasta. And the good thing about fresh pasta is we can cut it or tear it in the size that we need. So we need it to be this long, so we can cut it right there. The pasta cuts really easy, it stretches really easy, and we can make it exactly the size that we need, and we've got a lot of pasta. So I'll take one more piece. Cut that one. Okay, that's our first layer. On top of that, we're going to add a little bit more bolognese. To this layer, we're going to add some mozzarella. And then another layer of pasta. All right, this layer is our ricotta cheese layer. So we're going to add ricotta cheese. I like to put a good bit in there. I like to make a nice thick layer of ricotta cheese. It's that cheese that's in the center of the lasagna, and it's delicious. All right, I also like to add just a little bit of mozzarella to that layer. Not as much as on the other layers, but just a little. And then we're going back with our fresh pasta again. This layer gets another layer of bolognese. And some more of the mozzarella. Now we're going to do one more layer. This will be our final layer. Our fresh pasta. Notice we don't have to pre-cook the pasta because it's fresh. It's going to cook in there with our sauce. All of our extra bits of pasta here we can roll back out and turn them into fettuccine or capellini. But I'm going to top this off with the last of our bolognese. And then a little bit more mozzarella cheese. This is going to go in an oven that's 400 degrees. It's actually going to bake in about 15 minutes because everything in there is already cooked. All we're trying to do is cook the pasta, and fresh pasta cooks in about 2 minutes. We're going to leave it in there a little longer to let it get browned on the top and all those flavors come together beautifully. And then I'll show you what it looks like when we get it out. Our lasagna is hot out of the oven. It looks nice. It looks nice and browned on the top. You can see it's still bubbling a little bit. The cheese has melted. We even made a little bit of fresh fettuccine while we were waiting for the lasagna to cook. So the only other thing that we want to do to this lasagna is top it with a little bit of fresh grated Parmesan cheese, and it is ready to serve. Fresh grated Parmesan all over the top of our lasagna will melt down on it and give that extra added flavor. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like this video, you'll probably like my other videos. Please click the subscribe button and make sure you click the notification bell, and you will find out every time I upload a video. I upload once a week. You can also follow us on our Patreon page at patreon.com/Chef Danny Cooks, and enjoy your lasagna.